It's been fascinating to see all the Q4 2010 and overall 2010 smartphone stats roll in over the last few weeks. Here's a summary of the last few years by platform, using data averaged from Canalys, IDC and Gartner. Of special note is that the whole smartphone market is rising, even exploding in Android's case, which according to some analysts is about to overtake Symbian as the world's most popular smartphone platform. Symbian, iOS and BlackBerry are all ticking along with steady growth, very profitably in Apple's case, less so for the older two platforms. And for those that are interested, here's my prediction for the same platforms up to 2014, shown here as a 7-year trend. As I see it, 3 platforms will dominate. None of them a huge surprise, probably. Lies, damn lies, and Steve's charts, eh? Rolled out now for Nokia N8s and other Symbian 3 phones around the world as a videos patch, available via OviSuite and via SW Update over the air, bringing subtitle support shown here, and even better support for H.264 and other interesting codecs. Go get it. And so to the HTC Desire Z, or Z, if you're watching this in the good old US of A. Part of the reason I've had to wait till now to review this is because journalists over here in the UK have been desperately trying to hold on to the device for as long as possible. Selfish brutes, which is a good sign in itself. This is one review device that no one wants to give back. With its fold-out QWERTY keyboard, is well and truly in the jack-of-all-trades category in terms of smartphones and pocket computers. The corollary of this is that it's not the best at any one particular thing, but I'll come to that shortly. At heart, it's a 3.7-inch screen Android 2.2 smartphone with HTC's trademark Sense UI added. I know I go on and on about hating Android UI add-ons, but Sense is the best there is and at least adds enough functionality and enough nooks and crannies that even I'll admit it's worth having on board. From auto-filling in social data to clever touches like the intelligent ringtone volume control when you pick it up, Sense UI has been designed to add in all those little things that Google seem to have not gotten around to yet. Thus, software-wise, there's absolutely nothing to complain about in Desire Z. Literally nothing. Everything from Flash in the browser to extra codecs in the video player to almost the latest version of Android is all present and correct. In fact, there's almost too much. I've noticed before the duplication in terms of HTC versus standard Android widgets, the overwhelming amount that can be customized in terms of home screens and scenes and skins and wallpapers. As mentioned before, if you're a geek who likes to fiddle, you'll love HTC Sense. As you might have guessed, this means that Mr. Grumpy here is going to have to confine his grumblings to the Desire Z's hardware. Despite the substantial 180 grams weight, heavier than the massive Desire HD, heavier than the Milestone 2, 30 grams heavier than the Nokia N97. I enjoy the solid feel in the hand. It feels like it means business. The screen is super LCD rather than OLED, sadly, so it's not as vibrant indoors and still rather rubbish outdoors, a step backwards in my opinion. Sadly, the Desire's lovely hard control buttons have been replaced by this now standard and very annoying capacitive touch spots. And they're quite narrow here, so you've got to press quite accurately. Bring back the buttons, what I say. On the back is a sumptuous metal battery cover with a small slot for, you guessed it, output from the usual HTC tinny and pathetic speaker. This is absolute max volume. All very piercing and very disappointing. Someone at component procurement at HTC should be fired. Talking of components, despite the elevated price, it's the same old rubbish 5-megapixel camera unit. I cannot believe HTC is still using this in 2011. Here's a typical 5-megapixel photo in weak winter sunshine. And here's the same scene shot on a budget QWERTY device, in this case the Nokia E72, also with something of an incidental camera. It doesn't even have branded optics, just a low-end Nokia 5-megapixel affair. Same spec. Here's the central bit zoomed in, HTC on the left, E72 on the right. The difference makes you want to cry. This is supposed to be a flagship device. Thankfully, video is much better than stills. Here's a clip.
Video on the HTC Desire Z, Desire Z 720p, touch to focus, see what you think of audio and video quality.
Now to the elephant in the room, the form factor. The idea is to use 3 cams, Nokia N97 style, to let the screen fold up and away from the underlying QWERTY keyboard. In this case, the screen comes down flat and almost flush with the keyboard. A nice design idea, and one that HTC almost pulls off. Almost. There are 2 problems. One, the 2 main cams are connected by a spindly strip of metal, shown here. Compare it to this sheet of metal on the N97 hinge here, far, far stronger in terms of resistance to twisting forces. This and the slacker tolerances in the cam attachments means that even in open mode, the screen can be wobbled like this rather horribly. It's not a huge issue, but it's also not very confidence-inspiring for long-term reliability. And the springs on the cams means that it's far too easy to close the Desire Z. It's open, you reach to pick it up, and it closes every time. The second issue is that the main keyboard legends are implemented in grey translucent plastic on dark grey keys. When it's dark, the backlight comes on and they light up nicely. When it's really sunny, you can see the legends in natural light, but in the huge middle ground, indoors or on a cloudy day, it can be very, very hard to make out which key is which. It's an inexcusable cosmetic decision which cripples real-world usability. Legends and wobbles aside, the Desire Z keyboard isn't bad. There's not much key travel, but the action is positive enough. I like the layout, incorporating 2 programmable keys to any Android app or function shortcuts that you fancy. And as with all QWERTY smartphones, it's just great to be able to see the whole screen while typing rather than having half of it covered by a virtual keyboard. One unfortunate oversight by HTC is the mapping of the various keys. If you want a punctuation character, you can't just long press on that key as you would on most other phones, including the aforementioned N97. Oh no, a long press here gives you an international letter variant. Oh, okay, you have to use 2 fingers to generate a function key press on a different key. So a long press on the F/% key gives you $, as the first option, while function D gives you $, directly. This confusion is all over the keyboard and it's a punctuation nightmare when you're trying to type fast. Under the hood, there's a big internal system disk with over 1 GB free for apps, plus a micro SD slot under the battery and an 8 GB card supplied for putting your media on. The processor's 800 MHz, which is perfectly adequate, and I had no problems with my widget load and upload. There's GPS too here under the hood, but it's appalling, at least on this review unit. I tested it back-to-back on a 50-mile journey navigating alongside a Nokia N97. It's self-widely recognised as having the worst GPS in the Symbian world, the worst. The N97 didn't lose GPS lock once. The Desire Z lost lock several times and navigation had to be restarted to get the lock back. And yes, this was with the latest Desire Z OTA update installed. Tim from the Phone Show chat, what do you mean you don't listen each week? Here's the URL. Reckoned I'd hate the Desire Z as much as he did. Absolutely not. I don't hate it. In fact, I could live with the Desire Z for the next year if I had to, and it would do everything I wanted to at a pinch. But that doesn't stop me being disappointed by a concept that could have been stunning. Disappointed by the weak hinge spring that either closes the phone when you don't want it to, or creates a rattle because you picked it up wrong. Disappointed by the poor hinge design that creates doubt over it lasting the course. Disappointed by the poor GPS. Disappointed by the poor camera. Disappointed by key legend visibility. Disappointed by the terrible speaker. And so on. Is this better than its only rival in the Android world, the Milestone 2 from Motorola? Only if you prize software tweaks here in SenseUI over the raw hardware quality from the Big M. It's hard to recommend here, really. I give you a quirky Android, jack of all trades, and master of absolutely none. This is the HTC Desire Z.